The alien princess froze as the silent observer waited. He looked. HFY Stories. Best HFY Stories. The desert was quiet that evening, though the sky was alive. 2 suns had set hours ago, leaving trails of gold and violet stretching across the horizon. Sand dunes glowed faintly under the twin moons, and a soft wind whispered over the ridges. In the distance, a lone figure moved steadily, his boots crunching over the shifting sand. This was Jax Calder, known across the Outer Rim for his calm eyes and quiet way of watching things. His long coat flapped in the breeze, and his wide-brimmed hat shaded a face marked by sun and time. He was a cowboy of the stars, traveling where most dared not go. Jax slowed as he noticed a strange light streaking across the sky. Unlike the usual meteor showers or cargo ships, this was smooth, almost deliberate. The light grew larger, falling from the heavens in a shimmering arc that left a faint blue trail behind. Sand sparkled as the object landed far ahead, softly thudding on the dunes. Jax stopped. His hand rested on the handle of his solar lasso, a rope that could emit a faint energy glow, but he did not draw it. Something about the landing was not dangerous. It felt... He rode closer, his solar steed's hooves kicking up tiny sparks with every step. The air around the craft shimmered, like heat rippling on a hot planet, but colder somehow. The ship itself was unlike anything Jax had ever seen. It was smooth and tall, almost fragile-looking, made of a crystal-like metal that reflected the moonlight in soft colors. Its shape curved like the petals of a flower, as if it had grown from the sand itself rather than being built. As Jax approached, a hatch slid open silently, revealing Princess Lyra. She froze mid-step the moment she appeared, as though the world itself had paused. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, with faint traces of silver that caught the light. Her eyes were large, bright, and curious, reflecting the moon's glow. She wore flowing robes of a color Jax could not name, somewhere between blue and white, with hints of sparkling light that seemed to move across the fabric. Jax watched from behind a dune. He did not move closer. He had learned long ago that approaching strangers too quickly, especially strangers from the stars, could be dangerous, yet he did not feel fear. Only curiosity. The princess moved slowly, her gaze scanning the horizon, her hands adjusting the delicate patterns of her robes as if they were alive. The townsfolk of Star's End were beginning to notice the arrival, though most stayed hidden behind the buildings. They whispered to each other, voices low and nervous. "That's her, isn't it? The princess from Valoria?" one said. Another shook their head. "She's real. I've heard stories, but I never thought I'd see her." Jax observed quietly, noting every detail. The princess did not seem afraid. She did not speak. She simply moved with careful precision, as though her presence itself carried weight. Every step she took seemed deliberate, her gaze sweeping over the dunes and the town in equal measure. And yet there was a subtle fragility to her, like a crystal about to shatter. The wind shifted suddenly, and Jax felt a soft vibration through the soles of his boots. From somewhere unseen, a faint hum of energy radiated from her ship, almost musical, almost like a whisper meant for no one but him. He leaned forward slightly, intrigued. This was not just a traveler, not just a visitor. This was someone who carried something extraordinary, something that might change everything in this quiet frontier town. Lyra finally took her first step off the ship, moving cautiously toward the town. Jax followed at a distance, careful to stay in shadows. The sand crunched under her feet differently than under his boots, lighter, almost soundless. She paused at the edge of a ridge, looking down at Star's End. Her eyes widened slightly, not in fear, but in recognition. Something familiar or important seemed to be calling her there. The town itself was small but lively, built on the edge of a canyon that glimmered with minerals under the moonlight. Wooden buildings mixed with small metallic structures, and smoke from kitchen fires drifted into the night air. A few lanterns hung from posts, casting golden circles on the sand. The townsfolk peeked out of windows, their faces pale but eager. Many of them had never seen an alien up close, let alone one as regal and strange as this. Jax continued to observe, silently analyzing her every movement. He noticed how her hand brushed a glowing bracelet on her wrist, a device of some sort. Tiny holograms projected from it, flickering like stars in the night. She seemed to be studying them, as if planning or remembering something far away. He wondered what stories those tiny lights carried. Secrets of her home? Messages from her people? Or maybe something that had followed her across the stars? The princess's attention shifted toward a small market square in the town. She hesitated at the edge, then slowly walked toward it, moving as if trying not to disturb the invisible rhythm of the place. Jax's curiosity deepened. He had always been drawn to people who moved differently, who carried mysteries in their eyes. Lyra was more than mysterious. She was luminous. Her presence seemed to slow time itself, and for the first time in months, Jax felt a thrill he could not explain. A child peeked out from behind a stall, eyes wide. Lyra noticed and smiled faintly, not in a way that forced attention, but in a way that invited connection. The child froze, mesmerized, and waved timidly. She waved back, small and careful, and the child ran to tell the others. Soon, the quiet town began to stir, not with fear, but with fascination. Jax stayed hidden, noting every reaction. He could feel something shifting in the air. It was not danger, not yet, but anticipation. Something important was about to happen. He did not know what, but he trusted his instincts, and instinct told him that Lyra was the key to it. The princess moved further into the town, stopping at the edge of the old observatory. Its metal frame creaked softly in the night wind, a relic of past travelers and forgotten stars. She paused, scanning the horizon once more, and for the first time, she seemed to notice Jax. Their eyes met across the dunes. Jax felt a chill, though the air was warm. He could not look away. Her eyes were curious, not fearful, but there was a quiet intelligence there that made him pause. She seemed to know something he did not, but perhaps she wanted him to see, to understand, before revealing it. A faint laugh escaped her lips, a sound so soft it could have been carried away by the wind. And in that moment, Jax realized he had not seen anyone move like this before. She was frozen in some ways, yes, but alive in others, more alive than anyone in Star's End had been for a long time. The moons rose higher, casting pale light over sand and stone. Jax knew he could not approach yet, not tonight. The first meeting had to remain quiet, distant. The story was only beginning, and the threads of fate were weaving slowly, deliberately, around them both. Lyra finally turned back to her ship, adjusting the glowing device on her wrist again. She seemed deep in thought, as if planning her next step. Jax watched from the dunes, his mind racing with questions. Who was she really? Why had she come to this small town at the edge of the cosmos? And why, when she looked at him, did it feel as if she had been expecting him all along? As the night deepened, the winds carried whispers of the stars. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, and somewhere far away the twin suns slept beneath the horizon. In the quiet of the dunes, two figures lingered, one moving carefully through the sand, the other watching silently from the shadows. And though neither spoke a word, both knew the journey had already begun. The stars above seemed to twinkle with secrets. And in that moment, Star's End was no longer just a small town on the frontier. It was a place where stories would be written among the moons and the sand, and where an alien princess and a quiet cowboy would meet fate head-on. The morning sun spilled over Star's End like liquid gold. Dust shimmered in the light as the town slowly woke, and the twin moons faded into the sky's pale blue. Jax Calder rose from his small camp on the dunes, brushing sand from his coat. His solar steed pawed at the ground nearby, impatient to move, but Jax's thoughts were already elsewhere. He couldn't stop thinking about the princess, the way she had frozen under the stars last night. There was something about her that pulled at him, something he couldn't explain. Lyra, meanwhile, had not returned to her ship. Instead, she wandered through the town, her movements careful and deliberate. She examined the small buildings, touched the smooth walls of the observatory, and paused at the edges of the marketplace. Her eyes, so full of curiosity and intelligence, seemed to see more than what was in front of her. She noticed patterns in the arrangement of crates, the shadows of signs against the sand, the way light fell on the rooftops. Jax watched her from a distance, fascinated. It was not fear that kept him from approaching her. It was respect. He had learned over the years that some things could not be rushed. Some connections had to be earned quietly. So he followed her at a careful distance, silent as the desert wind, observing her every action. Lyra paused at a small fountain in the center of the town, water catching the sunlight in tiny rainbows. She knelt slightly to examine the flowing liquid, touching it with a single delicate finger. Jax noted how her hand seemed almost to glow in the morning light. It was not magic. It was something different. Something alive. A small child approached her cautiously, carrying a basket of fruit. Are you really a princess?" the child asked, voice trembling slightly with awe. Lyra smiled gently, not condescendingly. "Yes," she said softly, "but I am more like a traveler right now. I am learning, not commanding." Her voice was musical, soft enough to calm the child's nerves. The child smiled, then ran back to tell the others. Soon a small group of curious children gathered, their faces filled with wonder. Jax observed quietly, noting the change in the town's atmosphere. Fear had turned to fascination, and fascination to warmth. Lyra did not speak to the adults much yet, but her presence alone seemed to encourage the townsfolk to relax. Finally, Jax stepped a little closer, just enough that she might notice him. Her eyes flicked toward him, sharp and curious. She did not freeze this time. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, as if measuring him against some unspoken standard. "You've been watching," she said, her voice calm but knowing. Jax inclined his head. "I've seen many travelers, but few arrive like you. I thought it was wise to watch first." Lyra's lips curved slightly into a small, almost invisible smile. "Wise," she said. "And yet you did not approach me last night. You stayed quiet." "That's how I usually travel," Jax replied simply. "I observe before I interfere." He glanced at her wrist, noticing the faint glow of her device again. "That thing you wear, what does it do?" She held up her wrist carefully, letting the light shimmer across her robes. Tiny holographic shapes danced above it, showing stars, constellations, and patterns he could not immediately recognize. "It helps me remember," she said. "And it helps me find what I have lost." Jax watched the holograms flicker, fascinated. "Lost?" he asked, curiosity tinged with concern. Lyra looked at the patterns, tracing one with a slender finger. "My world, my home, is very far from here. I was sent to find a place that might help me protect it. I think I am close, but not yet." Her voice softened. "I do not understand it fully, but I feel it." The words made something stir inside Jax. He could not explain why, but he wanted to help her. Somehow, helping this princess, this alien traveler, felt important. He had spent so many years wandering the stars alone, and yet here, in the quiet town of Star's End, he felt a connection forming that went beyond reason. "I can show you the best view of the sky," he said finally, gesturing toward the old observatory on the edge of town. "It's where the stars tell their stories. You might find answers there." Lyra nodded, a small expression of gratitude crossing her face. Together, they walked toward the observatory. The children of Star's End ran ahead to peek inside, their laughter soft against the morning air. Jax kept a protective distance but allowed her to move freely, noticing how careful she was with every step. Inside the observatory, sunlight streamed through the tall, dusty windows. Ancient telescopes and star maps lined the walls. Lyra's eyes widened as she examined them. "These charts, they are beautiful," she whispered, moving from one to the next. She touched a model of the local solar system, her fingers brushing the miniature planets. "It is familiar, but also different." Jax leaned against a table, observing her quietly. "The stars are the same everywhere," he said softly, "but every place interprets them differently. Sometimes what seems familiar is really new, and what seems strange is really known." "Yes, perhaps that is why I am here," she said, "to see the same stars in a new way." They spent hours examining the observatory, discussing constellations, planets, and distant galaxies. Lyra's voice was calm, thoughtful, and full of wonder. Jax felt a strange mix of admiration and humility. He realized that in this moment, he was learning as much from her as she might be learning from him. As the sun climbed higher, Lyra paused by a telescope, peering through it at the distant dunes beyond Star's End. She adjusted the focus until a faint shimmer appeared on the horizon. A distant, floating light, almost like a star hovering close to the ground. She gasped softly. Jax stepped closer. "What is it?" he asked. "I am not certain," Lyra admitted, "but it feels important. Something is calling, something that has been waiting." Jax nodded slowly. He had learned long ago that the universe was full of strange things, and some of them were alive in ways people could not immediately understand. Whatever this light was, it mattered, and it mattered to her. The two of them continued observing the shimmer for hours, talking quietly, exchanging thoughts and ideas. They spoke of places neither had seen, of the ways the universe connected everything, and of the small miracles hidden in ordinary moments. In those conversations, a connection grew. It was subtle, quiet, but undeniable. Jax felt that Lyra understood him in ways most people never could, and Lyra, in turn, seemed to trust him more than any stranger she had met in centuries. By evening, the light on the horizon began to fade, leaving a trail of soft colors in the sky. Lyra straightened, her expression thoughtful. "Tomorrow I will follow it," she said. "It will lead me to answers, I believe. But I do not wish to go alone." Jax hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Then I will go with you," he said. "Not to lead, not to interfere. but to watch, to help, and to learn alongside you." She looked at him, a small smile touching her lips. "That is all I ask." The townsfolk, still curious about the strange visitor, peeked through windows and doorways, but neither Jax nor Lyra paid attention. They had found something more important than attention or approval. They had found a beginning. Night fell over Star's End, painting the dunes in silver and deep purple. The twin moons rose slowly, casting long shadows across the sand. Jax and Lyra stepped outside the observatory, standing side by side as they gazed at the stars. The shimmering light that had appeared earlier was gone, but the memory of it lingered. For the first time, Jax felt that the universe was not simply a place to wander through. It was a story waiting to be written, a story that he and Lyra were about to live together. And Lyra, for the first time since leaving her homeworld, felt a quiet certainty that she was not alone. The wind stirred again, soft and gentle, carrying the faint scent of distant worlds. Somewhere far away, the stars were shifting, waiting, and in the quiet desert town of Star's End, a cowboy and an alien princess prepared to follow a path that neither fully understood, but both were ready to explore. As they returned to the observatory to rest, Jax caught her gaze. There was a spark there, not fear, not doubt, but curiosity and trust. He knew that tomorrow would bring challenges and mysteries, but for tonight, the connection had been made. And sometimes, he thought, connection was the most powerful force in the universe. The desert night stretched endlessly over Star's End. Twin moons hung high in the sky, casting a soft silver glow over the sand dunes. Jax Calder sat outside the old observatory, leaning against his solar steed, while Lyra traced glowing constellations in the air with her fingers. The holographic projections from her wrist flickered gently, painting moving maps of stars across the observatory walls. "They say the stars tell stories," Jax said quietly, watching her work. "Some stories last for centuries, others vanish in a night." Lyra's eyes, wide with curiosity, met his. "Perhaps they tell the story of what is possible," she replied. "Not just what has happened, but what can happen if someone watches carefully and listens." Jax nodded. He had always felt the universe was alive, but in her presence it felt personal. The stars did not simply shine. They spoke. They whispered of places unseen and worlds waiting to be discovered. And in that quiet desert town, he realized that he was no longer just a traveler. He was a companion, a witness to something extraordinary. As they spoke, a faint ripple of light appeared far across the dunes. Jax noticed it first, a subtle shimmer that moved against the wind. Lyra saw it too and paused, her fingers hovering over her holographic projections. "Someone is watching?" she said softly, almost to herself. He had learned over years of wandering that not all watchers were dangerous, but most carried intentions that needed to be understood. "Do you know who it is?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "No, but I feel calm. It is not hostile. Yet it waits." The two of them stepped outside, toward the dunes, following the shimmer. As they approached, the faint light coalesced into a figure standing silently on a ridge, half hidden by the moonlit sand. He was tall, cloaked in a long coat that seemed to merge with the shadows. His face was partly hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat, but his eyes glimmered with quiet intelligence. Jax instinctively slowed, observing the figure. Lyra, however, stepped forward without hesitation. She had seen many wonders across the stars, and somehow this presence felt familiar, almost welcoming. The stranger raised a hand in greeting, slow and deliberate. "I have been following you," he said, his voice calm and low. "Not to interfere, but to watch. You, princess, are far from your home, and yet you carry something vital." Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly, studying him. "And who are you?" she asked, her voice steady. "Call me Eris," he said. "I have wandered the stars for longer than you may imagine. I track movements of those who influence worlds quietly. I've been waiting for someone like you." Jax glanced at her, silently asking if she trusted him to listen. Lyra nodded slightly, and the two of them moved closer to Eris, careful but unafraid. "Why follow me?" Lyra asked. "I am not here to fight. I am only seeking a path to protect my world." Eris smiled faintly. "Some things are not about fighting. Some things are about balance. You, Lyra, have a presence that stabilizes what many do not even see. The universe watches those who carry such gifts. And I am here to guide if guidance is wanted." Lyra's hand brushed her wrist device unconsciously, as though confirming the truth of his words. The holographic maps flickered, showing faint lines connecting her distant homeworld to this part of the galaxy. Something in her chest stirred. A feeling of recognition she could not explain. Jax finally stepped forward. "He's right," he said quietly. "There's more to your presence than just arriving here. I've felt it since last night. Whatever brought you to Star's End, it is bigger than either of us can see." Eris's eyes shifted briefly to Jax, a glimmer of approval in his gaze. "You are wise to recognize it. Not all who wander these worlds understand what they see. But you, cowboy, you observe, and that makes you valuable. Your role is simple but essential. To watch, to learn, to be present." Lyra nodded slowly, feeling a quiet certainty settle over her. "I understand," she said. "I have spent so long searching for something I could not name. Perhaps it has been here all along, in the quiet spaces, waiting for me to notice." The three of them stood silently on the ridge for a while, the desert stretching endlessly in every direction. Stars glittered overhead, forming patterns that seemed to shift subtly as if alive. Lyra traced a finger through the air, and the holograms responded, highlighting constellations that mirrored her homeworld's skies. Eris pointed toward a distant dune, faintly glowing under the moonlight. "That shimmer you saw earlier is a guide," he said. "It is not dangerous, but it is precise. Follow it, and you may find what you are seeking. But know this, the path is not simple. There will be puzzles to solve, places that test patience, and moments where you must trust without knowing why." Lyra glanced at Jax. "Will you come with me?" she asked softly. Jax smiled faintly. "I will. Not to lead, not to command, but to walk beside you." Eris nodded. "Then the journey begins." They followed the shimmer into the desert, moving carefully over dunes that reflected moonlight like liquid silver. The air was cool, crisp, and strangely alive. Lyra felt her senses sharpen, noticing tiny details. The way the wind curved around the dunes, the faint glow of minerals beneath the sand, and the subtle hum of energy coming from her ship in the distance. Hours passed as they walked, guided by the shifting shimmer. Lyra and Jax spoke quietly about the stars, their observations weaving together ideas about the universe, stories, and patterns hidden in the light. Eris, meanwhile, watched silently, occasionally pointing out minor alignments in the constellations that might serve as clues. At the edge of a vast canyon, the shimmer stopped. The light condensed into a small floating crystal that hovered above the sand. Lyra reached out slowly, her fingers brushing the surface. The crystal glowed brighter, and images flickered within it, visions of distant planets, frozen landscapes, and swirling galaxies. "It shows the paths," Eris explained. "Not every step, not every choice, but the possibilities. Some are bright and safe, others require courage to walk through, and some lead to revelations you cannot yet imagine." Lyra watched, captivated. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "And strange. I have never seen anything like this on Valoria." Jack stepped closer, his eyes scanning the visions. "It is like a map of choices," he said. "Every possible path the universe offers, but you have to choose carefully. One wrong step and the journey might take a long detour." Lyra nodded thoughtfully. "I understand. And yet there is comfort in seeing the possibilities. It is not frightening, only inviting." Eris smiled faintly. "That is because your presence balances what others cannot see. You carry a calm that allows the universe to unfold around you without chaos. But it also draws attention from those who watch quietly." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "So the shimmer, the crystal, it is not random. It is drawn to me?" "Exactly," Eris said. "And that is why I have followed. To ensure that the path is understood before it is walked. To teach patience, observation, and awareness. These are the tools of those who influence worlds quietly." Jax nodded, feeling a new respect for both Lyra and Eris. He had wandered the desert for years, seen strange creatures in faraway places, but he had never encountered anything like this. The quiet presence of the princess, the silent guidance of the observer, and the shimmer that led the way. It was unlike anything he had imagined. The night grew deeper, and the twin moons reflected off the canyon walls in silver and violet hues. Lyra held the floating crystal carefully, watching the patterns of light shift. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "we will follow the path it shows. Whatever it leads to, I will not turn away." Jax placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I'll be with you," he said, step by step. "Even if the path is long, we'll walk it together." Eris nodded, a quiet satisfaction in his gaze. "Then the journey truly begins at dawn." Rest now and let the stars guide your dreams. They have much to show you if you are willing to look. The three of them set up camp at the canyon's edge. Lyra sat quietly, watching the crystal float near her, its soft light reflecting in her eyes. Jack settled beside her, keeping watch, while Eris stayed slightly apart, scanning the dunes with quiet attentiveness. The desert was silent but alive, carrying whispers of faraway worlds. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a feeling she had not known since leaving Valoria. She was not alone. She had allies, companions who understood the value of quiet observation and careful choices, and for the first time in a long while she felt that her journey, though uncertain, was guided. Above them, the stars shifted subtly, as if acknowledging their presence. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the shimmer waited, ready to reveal the next step. And as the night deepened, Lyra, Jax, and Eris rested, knowing that tomorrow would bring mysteries to uncover, paths to follow, and lessons the universe had been waiting to teach. The first light of dawn stretched slowly across the desert of Star's End, painting the sand dunes in soft oranges and pinks. The wind was gentle, carrying the faint scent of distant minerals and blooming desert flowers. Lyra, Jax, and Eris rose quietly, the floating crystal hovering nearby, glowing faintly as if aware that the next stage of their journey had begun. Lyra carefully adjusted her holographic maps, tracing the lines that connected her homeworld, Valoria, to this part of the galaxy. She had followed the shimmer across the dunes, and now the crystal seemed to pulse more strongly, guiding them towards something unseen. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, a quiet energy that made every step feel purposeful. "This is it," Lyra whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "The place the crystal wants me to see." Jax, walking beside her, glanced at the horizon. "Looks like just another canyon from here," he said. "But somehow, I don't think it is." Eris remained silent, his eyes scanning the distant cliffs. He had spent decades following paths like this, and he recognized the subtle signals that marked a place of significance. "You are correct, Jax," he said softly. "It may appear ordinary, but the value of a place is not always in its shape or size. Sometimes it is in what it allows you to see." The canyon stretched before them like a silver mirror under the morning sun. Crystals jutted from the sand and walls, catching light and scattering it across the cliffs like liquid diamonds. Lyra approached one of the largest formations, reaching out to touch its smooth surface. The moment her fingers made contact, the crystal she carried floated higher, spinning slowly and projecting a new pattern of stars above them. Gasped softly. "It's showing me something new," she said. "Something I've never seen before, but it feels familiar." The projection formed a large, transparent map of the galaxy, centered on a small, distant planet. It was hidden, almost invisible to ordinary telescopes, and yet its presence was undeniable. Lyra's eyes widened. This is the world I have been searching for." Jack stepped closer, studying the projection. "It's faint, hidden from most maps, but it's real." Eris nodded. "This world has been unstable for centuries. Its orbit, its energy balance, everything has been off. Few beings notice these subtle shifts, and fewer can influence them. But Lyra, your presence stabilizes it. That is why the universe guided you here." Lyra stared at the map in awe. "Me? I don't understand." "How can I do that? You carry what we call a balancing presence," Eris explained. "It is rare. Not a weapon, not a power in the usual sense, but a force that harmonizes what is out of order. Your people on Valoria understand it, but even they cannot reach the world from here. That is why you were sent." Lyra's hand brushed her holographic wrist device again. "And the crystal? It led me here?" "Yes," Eris said. "It senses those who can guide the unstable. It waits for those who are ready to see their role, and it recognizes your ability to act without disrupting the natural flow of things." Jax looked at Lyra, admiration shining in his eyes. "So, you're not just a traveler. You're needed. This world relies on you, even if it doesn't know it yet." Lyra swallowed, feeling a strange mix of awe and responsibility. "I've spent so long searching for my purpose, and now it is here. I just need to understand it fully." The trio moved deeper into the canyon, following the patterns of light cast by the crystal. The walls around them shimmered with a faint natural energy, reflecting colors that shifted like liquid rainbows. It was unlike anything Lyra had seen on Valoria. She touched the walls lightly, feeling vibrations beneath her fingers, tiny pulses of energy that resonated with the crystal she carried. "Each pulse," Eris explained, "is part of the balance. It is subtle, but it is life." You are not controlling it. You are harmonizing with it. That is your role here. Lyra closed her eyes, breathing deeply. She felt the energy moving through the canyon, through the crystals, and into herself. It was not overwhelming, but powerful in a gentle way, like a river flowing steadily beneath the sand. She reached out, letting the crystal hover just above her palm. Slowly, the projections expanded, showing how her presence influenced the hidden planet far beyond the horizon. Jax watched her, noticing how she seemed to glow slightly under the twin suns' rising light. There was no magic here, at least not the kind of magic that was flashy or loud. It was quiet, calm, and deliberate, like the careful steps of a dancer. He felt lucky to witness it. Hours passed as Lyra and Eris worked together, studying the projections and observing the subtle effects on the distant world. Each adjustment she made, each moment she harmonized with the crystal, caused tiny shifts in the projected patterns, stabilizing or improving the balance. It was mesmerizing, not only to watch, but to understand, even in a small way. Finally, Lyra took a step back, her breathing steady, her expression peaceful. "I think I understand now," she said. "I am not meant to fight or control. I am meant to watch, to balance, and to guide gently. That is enough." Eris smiled faintly. "Exactly. That is why you were chosen, and that is why I followed you, to ensure that the first steps are steady. The universe is patient, but it rewards those who act with understanding." Jax nodded slowly. "And I'll be here, every step, to watch, to help if I can, and to learn from you." Lyra's eyes softened, a quiet warmth in her gaze. "Thank you, Jax. You have taught me that companionship is just as important as purpose. Even when a path is clear, walking it alone is not the same as walking it with someone who observes and understands." Eris stepped slightly forward, his cloak brushing the sand. "And now, the next stage begins. You will return to Valoria, but your influence will remain here. The world is stabilized thanks to your presence, and you will carry knowledge and insight back to your people. This is the gift of quiet observation, acting without forcing, guiding without demanding." Lyra nodded, holding the crystal close. She felt a calm certainty she had never known before. Her journey had brought her to this place, across countless stars and deserts, and now she understood why. The universe had been waiting for her presence, waiting for her to recognize her role. As they prepared to leave the canyon, the crystal floated ahead, pulsing softly, projecting the faint outlines of distant galaxies and constellations. Lyra smiled, a full, radiant smile. "I will return home," she said softly. "But I will not forget what I have learned here. Not the balance, not the journey, not the quiet companions who helped me see it." Jax tipped his hat, a small grin on his face. "And I'll keep wandering, watching, learning. But I won't forget you either." Eris nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "The universe works in cycles. Paths intersect, separate, and sometimes cross again. Remember this place, Lyra. It will call to you in ways you do not yet understand." They walked back toward Star's End together, the sun rising higher over the horizon. The townsfolk had begun their daily routines, unaware of the extraordinary events that had unfolded beyond the dunes. But somehow, the air felt lighter, the sand warmer, and the stars overhead brighter, even in daylight. Lyra paused for a moment, looking back at the canyon one last time. The crystals glimmered faintly in the morning light, like distant promises. She felt a sense of completion, not of an ending, but of a beginning. Her purpose was clear, her path guided, and her heart full of quiet confidence. Jax walked beside her, his presence steady and reassuring. "So what next?" he asked casually, though there was a spark of excitement in his eyes. Lyra laughed softly, a sound that carried across the dunes. "Next we continue. Not as travelers or strangers, but as companions who have learned to see what others cannot. The universe is vast, and there is much to discover. But now I know that even the smallest steps, quiet, careful steps, can change worlds." Eris watched them with a calm satisfaction, then turned toward the horizon. "And I will continue to follow quietly, observing and guiding where needed. The stars have their stories, and so do you. But for now, you walk forward with understanding, and that is enough." As they rode toward the town, the desert stretched endlessly before them, filled with light shadows and the quiet hum of distant worlds. Lyra's heart was steady. She knew her journey was far from over, but the first revelation had been made. The universe had called, she had answered, and together with her companions, she would shape the paths that waited among the stars. The twin moons lingered faintly in the sky as they reached Star's End. The town was peaceful, bathed in soft morning light. Lyra, Jax, and Eris paused for a moment, watching the horizon stretch endlessly before them. And though no one else in the town knew it yet, something extraordinary had occurred. A quiet harmony had been restored, a path illuminated, and a journey begun that would echo across the stars. Lyra smiled, feeling the balance within herself and around her. "This is only the beginning," she whispered. And with that, she stepped forward, ready for whatever the universe would show her next.